welcome back to the Riri Show. It's been a really busy few weeks, but I'm so happy to be able to bring you more episodes. And I'm so excited for this particular episode because it is no secret that I've been following this project and their team for a while. So today we are speaking with Kilt Protocol. Please welcome the incredible Ingo and Christine. It's an absolute pleasure to speak to you today. I've been lucky enough to speak with Christine in the past months and some of the other Kilt team members. But this is my first time speaking to yourself, Ingo.
Nice to meet you in person almost. And thanks for having us on the show.
Absolutely. I'm so excited to learn more. Kilt obviously is something I've been following closely for a long time, but hearing it from the source is a whole other can of worms. So I'm really excited. So Ingo and Christine, let's start with a quick intro. And I know this is kind of, I do this with all of my episodes, just a quick intro. We'll talk a little bit about Kilt and then get into kind of the bigger things here. So can you tell us a bit about yourselves and your role at Kilt Protocol?
So shall I start? So I'm Ingo, I'm the founder, and that's almost it. So I'm a computer scientist. I had a startup in the 90s of the last century. I made an industrial career after that, and then decided to go fully into crypto in 2016, actually. And then finally in January 2018, we started this company called Bot Labs, which is building Kilt, or which was building Kilt before it became a totally decentralized network. And now we're building lots of applications on top of it, which is also total fun. And yeah, that's basically me.
Love it. There's not much else that needs to be said. You're a well-known person in the space. So thank you for that. And Christine, yourself.
Sure. Hi, Christine Mohan. I work on business development at Kilt, also on the marketing and any type of adoption. So I was at Polkadot and Web3 before this as CMO, so rolling out the launches of Kusama and Polkadot and the token and going through decentralization and all those exciting phases. And before that, I was with a consensus project called Civil, built on Ethereum. So been in blockchain for a bit, and then before that was in digital media, working for some big media companies in New York, and then before that software. So always been on the tech side, and blockchain is kind of the edge of the sphere for emerging technology, I would say.
Love that. And I love how you said it so casually, but that's a stacked resume. So really excited to chat with you guys. So I never like to start an interview without a bit of, background for the viewers who are maybe new to Kilt. So just for the sake of kind of hearing it from the source, what is Kilt? And I mean, your protocol revolves around identity, decentralized identity at that. What does this mean?
Yeah, I can take this. Digital identity is something that you can imagine best, I think, when you think about identity as a whole and in the beginning. So in the physical world, we do have identity as well. And identity is definitely not our passport. That's something completely different. Identity for me is who I am, what I believe, what I do not believe, where I work, and all that together brings my identity. So how do we do that in the physical world? In the physical world, we always start with identifiers. So first, there's something like your face or your fingerprint or your signature, which is inherent to you. So this is something which is already decentralized, right? Because that wasn't given to you by a company. It wasn't given to you by your government. It was just you made your face yourself. So this identifies you. And then in the physical world, you normally take a picture of your face, for example, and put it on a document. And this document is issued by some kind of trusted entity, which can be a government, which can be a company, which can be a church, which can be a friend of yours. And those documents normally entitle you to do something or to own something or something like that. And we call these things credentials. And the identifier together with the credential actually entitles you to do something. This is actually fantastic because it has been working for over 1,000 years. And then came digital identity. And digital identity, when you look at it, is basically Facebook, Google. So there's companies and they own your identifiers. you're not you, you are something in the database of theirs, right? And then they add credentials to that, and then they do things with it, but you don't control that. And this is one of the big flaws actually in Web 2. And this is why we made the whole thing. We said this has to change, right? It has to be at least as good as in the physical world. And this is what Kilt protocol does. It actually reflects the way we use credentials in the physical world into the digital world. How do we do that? First of all, you make your own identifier. You make it on your computer. It's not given to you by a blockchain or by a company or by someone else. You make your own identifier, which we call DID, decentralized identifier. And then we have the possibility in Kilt that people form trusted entities and they issue credentials to the persons. But the persons, again, hold their own credentials. They're not stored on the blockchain. They're not stored with the company. They're stored with you on your computer. And you decide if you want to show this credential, what you want to show it for, and so on. So you have the rights and the power that you had in the physical world now also in the digital world. And this is Kilt in a nutshell.
Right. And I think what I love about it most is putting the power, back to yourself, really, because you own your own identity, and just how you related it to, your identity is so much more than just your passport or your driver's license and kind of all of this stuff. So a question I actually had a little bit ahead here, but it actually ties right into what you said about Web 2 is just from yourself, like what is Web 3 to you? And I asked this as an open-ended question because the answer tends to vary depending on who you ask. So I'm just curious what your answer is here.
Yes, because I think really, as we've talked about, everyone has a slightly different take on Web 2, Web 3. Coming from more of a Web 2 world and being around for the launch of websites back in like 99, 2000 for some of the bigger brands, for me, it's actually what can we do differently? And what I'm very excited about is not only showing consumers and businesses that there are other ways to work with data, work with consumers to protect their data, but we're starting to edge in and maybe experiment even reaching younger demographics, because it's almost like we'd like to take a bottom-up and top-down approach. And we may even do some fun things with TikTok and some social media, because as much as we want to reach the consumers and folks who are working and buying and decision makers and things like that, in some ways we will have the most online, in some ways jaded generations coming up who have lived on social media, who have had public lives. And I think in some ways this is a fresh time to catch them with an idea about Web3 and how this can be different as they grow and mature and how they want to manage their identity. And it's a brand new idea, and I think it might be something that a lot of us don't think about now, but there's still a chance to catch younger demographics.
Yeah, 100%. I really like that. And especially, with identity, it's kind of like, it's one of those topics that takes, Ingo being a computer scientist and, all of this stuff, it takes a lot of knowledge and it's a lot of kind of tech speak too behind it. And it's really fun to bring that aspect in because ultimately it is about adoption too, right? And so, you think about, the younger generation and bringing them in and how to keep people enthralled in all of this as well. So absolutely love that. So you Kilt in general has delivered this past year. You guys have had a lot come out, tons of new features, and we're talking, social KYC, DID sign, Web3 name, asset DID, your coming Polymec. And actually I've been logging into my Moonsama bridge using my Kilt social KYC. So I can sign in with my wallet instead of my username and password. And when we talked about, Web 2, Web 3, it's really not so much of a Web 3 thing to be using a username and a password and sharing information like this. So really nice to see that in action. So I know that this is kind of a big question, so I'll guide you through it a little bit, but can we touch on each of these features and what they do, their use case type things? So starting maybe with social KYC.
Yeah, so social KYC was actually after the first thing that we developed as an application was probably Sporan, which is the identity wallet, which was necessary because normal crypto wallets don't hold identities, they just hold coins, and a coin is not enough, right? You need to have credentials, you need to have the IDs, so we had to develop our own wallet. But after that, we actually started with social KYC, because I think it's actually a pretty nice use case, because we all know KYCs, right? We do them every day, not every day, but every week probably, to sign in where you need some, if you want to do financial transactions or so, that seems to be needed, and then it's totally okay to do KYC. But there's also so many use cases where you actually don't have financial transactions, but you want to know who you actually talk with in the internet, because in the internet, basically everyone can be a dog, or a dog can be everyone, and you want to actually nail down who that is. And in those cases, a KYC often doesn't help. So if you're a gamer and you're competing against someone in China, and you actually want to know who this guy is in the internet, it doesn't really help you to find out which street he lives in China. And if he's cheating you, then you can't probably go to the Chinese police and say, can you please catch this guy for me, he's cheating. That wouldn't help, right? What you want to do is that you want to know which internet personality you're working with or you're playing with. And this is what social KYC is for. It's a simple service which lets you prove that you own the control over various social media services like TikTok and LinkedIn, and I think LinkedIn doesn't work, and Twitter and email, and you name them. So basically, I think we have a list of 10 or so. So you can prove each and every one of them, and then you get a credential for that you actually own the service. And when you're playing with someone, you can send all those credentials over to someone and say, and this is actually me. This is the guy. I'm the guy with this email address. I'm the guy with this Twitter account, and so on. And if I then cheat you on the game, then you can go on Twitter and say, please be aware of this guy, he's cheating, right? You don't want that, which gives you a lot of power over me, because you know who I am on the internet. And for that, you don't need to know my name. You don't need to know where I live and all that stuff. That's not necessary for you. So it's so you have a different type of KYC actually in the internet world and in the financial and real world, physical world. And we provide this for the internet world, and we see a growing adoption on that, because there seems to be quite a need for that, because there's so many use cases, I can't name them all.
Right. Absolutely. Absolutely. And actually, while we're on the topic of social KYC, so that list, you gave of these different platforms, do you see that list expanding at any point in Kilt's lifetime?
I think it will be ever increasing. We're even talking now to maybe even link services to that, which do KYC government type to that, so that they can also offer that there. So there's different, and if something is needed, we normally add that. So I think we're quite good after not even a year to have around 10 services there, because 10 services actually can make it pretty certain who you are. If you have the Instagram and the GitHub and the Twitter and so on, then you can actually nail down the person, because you will probably not in many cases just send one credential. You will probably be asked to send 3 or 4 credentials to absolutely make sure who you are, right? And most people have 4 of those 10 social media things. I don't see any big need for adding something right now, but if this comes up, then the community will probably tell us, and when the community tells us, we normally do things, right? So this will be added on demand, I would say.
Amen. And you know what? The community is vocal, and they keep everybody kind of on their toes. So great answer. So what about DID sign?
Christine.
So DID sign is a way to sign any type of file securely and privately, and it's a browser-to-browser service, so that makes it very interesting when you think about other leading Web 2 signing services. It opens up a lot of flexibility for consumers, for businesses. It opens up speed in that it's very quick and easy. Like a lot of our services, we focused on usability. So, a browser-based drag-and-drop service is a pretty rare thing in our world. And I think people, when they see it, they instantly understand it. And we are really excited to see some of the, even the use cases that, as we talk to potential partners, things that they're coming up with. And we launched DidSign, the first thing we then iterated was adding timestamps. And it turns out that timestamps have really caught the attention of quite a few potential partners, especially in the medical field. They want to timestamp their lab reports. Certainly, like medical malpractice and insurance, those are big businesses, and they need to make sure that their reports are accurate and timely, and they can get around the hospital very quickly. So we're really excited about like the adoption and the real interest and the new ideas that come through as we brainstorm with some of these partners. Certainly, the flexibility in being able to sign, typically you're used to signing contracts and, you do it very quickly with our services, but here you can also sign software. So devs will be interested in that. You can sign research to prove that you were the first one with this type of a discovery. You could sign video. So for media companies, it's a way to fight fake news and show that this video that you shot in the field, maybe at a war-torn area, makes it back to the publisher who wants to run it on TV, and you can actually show that it was not tampered or changed within the time that it was shot and transmitted. So really important. And again, coming back to the use of ease of use for consumer, it's a really important focus for us to kind of get beyond blockchain and beyond folks who are accustomed to doing blockchain transactions and wallets and make it very simple for them.
Totally. And I think what's cool about this too, and I mean Kilt in general, is that the use case is so much further than blockchain. Like a lot of these, these companies or these fields that you're scoping out are beyond blockchain. So that has a lot to do too with bringing new eyes in. And I know that DID sign, actually, I was a nurse, or technically, I guess I still am. I still have a license. And I wish I was around for this. I would love to see Kilt in the hospital while I'm working. So really awesome. And then what about Web3 names? So you're W3N, and I have my own. So I'd love to.
Yeah, I want to add something to DidSign.
Yeah.
I think what's really important about DidSign is actually that it is, for me, it's the first time that we can see that Web3 is so much better than Web2. It is actually tangible for everyone, because in the Web2 service, you all know those services, we're not going to name them. Basically, it always feels really insecure. Even if you upload a document like a business document, it feels like, okay, now I uploaded to this server and I don't know who owns it, right? And are they secure enough? Are they stealing it? Are they analyzing it? What are they doing with it? And it might be a secret or something which I don't want to disclose. And then when I sign this thing, the only thing that I actually sign is that I push a button and that I prove my email address, but only my email address. And together with social KYC, you can prove here so many other things, that this is your Twitter account and so on. You can even attach a whole government type KYC credential to it if you want, so that you can be absolutely sure that you're talking with this person, and the document never leaves your computer. This is the most important thing. And it is then still easier to use than the Web2 mechanism, and that actually shows the power of Web3. So we have something which is more secure, which is faster, which is easier, which is cheaper. It basically beats Web2 in every single discipline. And that's pretty funny to actually see that. And this is where people understand the power of Web3 actually. And so I'm totally happy and totally proud of this service. You asked about W3N. So the basis to all this digital identity is something that we call a DID, decentralized identifier, which looks very much like a crypto address. So no one can remember this. So if I send you my DID, you can't distinguish it from any other DID, basically, because it's just letters and numbers. And what you need, I think, is a human readable name. And this is W3N. W3N makes sure on the blockchain that you can select a name for you and attach that to exactly one DID. And then this DID is attached to your name. The name is unique. So if someone else wants Riri, it's gone because Riri has it already. Is connected to this one DID. And then if you sign something, for example, with DidSign, this works with the DID. So who signed it? Yeah, you look it up with W3N, and W3N says this DID is basically Riri. And here are her credentials. This is Riri on Twitter. This is Riri on email if Riri published these information. So this is what, it just makes it easier.
Perfect.
And so many people are used to using handles per se. And as Ingo said, we develop these things and they start becoming, then we're like, okay, well, we need this. Now we have did sign, but then we have the string of names or letters and numbers. And if this is going to be truly consumer friendly, we have to attach a human readable name to this, that Ingo or Christine or Riri. And people understand that. Folks that are validating and securing our blockchain can use that name, their company name or their personal name on our stake board, so you can actually see who you're staking with. So it adds trust, it adds a level of transparency, and again, it's something that consumers would recognize, and it makes blockchain a little less scary.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. So if you guys didn't hear that, nobody can steal Riri. I am myself. I've got my name. We're good. So what about Asset DID? I was ahead of myself here, and I actually saw yourself, Ingo, speak at Decoded. I was watching online. It's really nice to see your team there, but you did talk a little bit about Asset DID or Asset Did there as well.
Yeah, so Asset DID is something which we probably in the first version of Kilt, when we went live last September, that wasn't there. And we didn't really think it was so important. And then came a lot of people and actually made us aware that it is really important. And then we had to add this, obviously. So the thing with the DID is, first of all, it's connected to a person, right? Because you have a wallet and there's your DID and you control it and you can type in your password and then you sign something with the idea. And then there's things which are not persons, and this is digital assets, like things which live on a blockchain, like an NFT and stuff like that. And these things are a little bit different because they can't own their own wallet, they can't download anything, they can't store anything, they are just things on a blockchain. So now, do they need a DID? In the beginning, we thought maybe not, but in the end, we noticed definitely they do, because for NFTs, you have the problem that actually an NFT can be forged very, very easily, because you can just make a copy of the blockchain and run it somewhere else and have two blockchains. There's not only Ethereum out there, right? There's also Polkadot, there's Kilt, there's Moonbeam, and Moon River, and you have all these blockchains, and they can actually run smart contracts which issue NFTs. So actually, what you need the information: which NFT number is it, which contract is it, and which blockchain is it. And if you have these three things plus which standard is it together, then you can identify a digital object. And this is unique then. So you can actually, so as long as you don't have an asset DID, you don't really know which NFT you're talking with or about. And when you have an asset DID, you can do that. And that brings a lot of value to these markets out there. And the craziest thing about that is that the asset DID always stays the same. It describes the NFT, for example. And if I sell you my NFT, well, then you have an NFT with exactly this asset DID, and I don't have it anymore. And then what you can do is you can start using the Kilt blockchain, attaching credentials to this NFT. That could be a credential saying, this is a beautiful picture, which is not very helpful. But if I sell you then this picture, then you have a picture which has an asset DID, which is linked with this credential. So I sell all the credentials with it. I can't keep them for myself. And that unlocks a huge potential. For example, in Berlin, I had this example of the watch manufacturer. So the watch manufacturer could issue a watch and then attach that to a credential and to an asset DID. So you would also get an NFT. So you get a watch and an NFT. And this NFT then is linked to a credential which says this was produced by this great Swiss watch manufacturer. And then if I sell this watch again, I probably not only sell the watch, I also sell the NFT, and then they also have the credential. But if the watch gets stolen, only the watch is gone. and I still have the NFT. And if the thief then tries to sell this thing, it's going to be complicated because he can't sell the NFT with it, right? So he can't prove his ownership and he can't prove of a physical good. So it connects somehow the physical world and the blockchain world or the digital world together. And this is what makes it really, really interesting. And we see a lot of requests now from companies dealing with NFTs and actually bringing purpose to NFTs. And I think that's necessary, right? An NFT which has no purpose at all is boring after a while, right? So you have to bring purpose, and this is what you guys at Mulzama are doing, right? You use your NFTs inside the game. Now it has the purpose, right? You know why you own this thing, and things are going to happen. I think this NFT world is going to evolve in exactly that direction. Things need to have a purpose, and if they don't have a purpose, they will just somehow become boring at one point. But purpose can be attached with credentials, and this makes this asset DIDs actually a really, really interesting concept.
Absolutely. And yeah, I mean, Kilt, I think a lot of the time, you know, we immediately think identity security is just such a big part of this. I mean, security in every aspect. And I think that's kind of what we touched on in each topic is, you know, the enhanced and increased security that you have with each of these functions or each of these features. So what about Polymech then? Let's talk a little bit about Polymech before I ask all the juicier questions here.
I think there will be news on Polymech in the next weeks, maybe 2 months, and I actually don't want to spoil anything. Something is going to happen, but this will evolve. So it's good news. We can say that, but it's I don't want to spoil anything because we haven't aligned on communication for that.
Let's keep it a secret. I'm excited. It just means more fun news in the future for us. So now that we have a bit of background, and I know that was a lot of talking, but thank you for that. So I really want to get into it here with, you know, in terms of adoption integration. I was reading through your FAQ on your Medium article regarding your move to Polkadot, which I will get into 100%. But I noticed speak of, you know, large enterprise partners, and the answer included top accounting firms and global media companies and medical institutions, as Christine was mentioning there. Like that's big stuff. That's big stuff to read. Can you touch on this and maybe a little bit about what companies, you know, what are they interested in doing with Kilt protocol?
Yeah, so different things. That's a complicated question because everyone's totally different, and their approaches are totally different. And this is what we wanted, right? We didn't say we have this one purpose and then now please everybody do the same and who's first. And this is not what we want to achieve. What we actually said, there's totally different use cases in media. There's totally different use. I think I can speak about the medical thing. So what they are very much interested in this, Christine mentioned it before, in this assigning thing, especially together with timestamps, because it seems to be a huge problem in research, but I didn't know that if you do research, you sometimes have findings, and those findings are not immediately published. You collect them over years or so, and then you have a big article, and then you publish that, and then it's fine that then obviously it's proven that you are the inventor of that, but you have things in between, and you sometimes want to somehow prove that you have invented that at that time, because later someone goes, yeah, I got it before you. And so those timestamps seem to be really important, especially in research and medical research. So this is a project we are bringing, for example, forward with a hospital. The accounting firms, I can't talk about what they're doing because they also, so we have contracts there which say we cannot, and I actually like that very much, because in crypto you see so many things which are announced and then never happen. So we decided, especially with the bigger firms, to only start discussing this in public when there's something to show. And it's always nice when you have signed a contract, it's always nice when you have this partnership, and but it's so much better if you actually have something to show that people can use and a service that people can buy. And we decided to wait a little bit until these things are actually there, because that has I think it's much more transparent. And because you've seen in crypto partnerships announcements which never came to life a lot, and this is frustrating for people. And so we decided to change the ways here a little bit and only talk about things which are actually tangible.
Absolutely. I think the biggest part of this is just that it's even happening, right? I mean, those are some really big things.
Yeah, that's the good thing, and I think this is what makes maybe is a little bit of a difference between us and many other projects. We look not only inside the crypto world. We know that the crypto world is totally important for us. We're working together with you guys from Usama, for example. This is totally important for us because this is you are early adopters. It's not, we don't have to explain blockchain to you, but if you go to big companies, it is much more complicated and sometimes takes years to actually do something and get everyone involved. And especially big companies have lots of departments and everybody wants to be involved. And then sometimes you have a not invented here syndrome and so on and so on. So it's complicated and it takes years. And we see that a lot of crypto companies are actually shying away from that, talking with those companies because you need a lot of time. And Christine and I, we are from industry, so we have made our industry experience. So we're not shying away to talk to these people. And we also took our time. So for some of those corporations we are now talking about, they have been brewing like for 1.5 years or so. And that's necessary time. It's not that they're so slow. No, they have their decision-making processes. And you have to, well, if you want to work with them, you have to play their game, right? And we did this, but I think the chance which is in here is actually to bring crypto even outside the crypto ecosystem, which will be important sooner or later, right? So it must be, we have beautiful technology, but if only the people who know about the technology play with the technology, then the technology is not so important. And if we want to bring it out to the world and have real world adoption, then we have to go this bumpy road and speak with those people out there. And we will have to take the time, and we took the time, and now it seems that some of these things actually materialize, which is fantastic for us, and I think is also very, very good news for the whole ecosystem.
Absolutely. The whole ecosystem and beyond, really, right? I mean, that's a big part of it. And actually, I was going to ask this anyways, but now that you kind of touched on it. So what is, like, logistically, what does it look like when these larger companies adopt Kilt, the tech, et cetera? Like, would there be necessarily, I know this is kind of in the future, but is there training courses for them, education? Would it run more on the back end where they don't really need to know the tech as much? What would that really look like? You know what I mean?
Yeah, but we trained a little bit ourselves because we didn't know. So we made experiments, and the one thing that turns out to be the best way is to bring developers from their side and developers from our side together and make a hackathon together. That's the best thing, because then the people start learning about, they get fascinated about the stuff. They see what is possible. They understand Web3. When you touch it, it's a totally different thing, and they are developers, right? So they are easy to adopt, basically, because they know how to handle all that stuff. And we just do 2 days hackathons with companies. So first, of course, we flesh out the business case and all that stuff, which goes on the management level, which takes very long time. And then at one point we say, actually, we want to build this together. And what we do then is that we bring the developers together, 3 or 4 from us, maybe 10 from their side. And then they are locked basically in a chamber and work like 2 days on something. And normally they come out with very bright eyes and say, wow, this is totally great. And then we have advocates there, right? Because then they want to play with this thing and want to see what it actually can deliver. And that's the nicest way actually to do it. And this turns out to be.
And each integration and each hackathon we have with a new partner, we learn things. We learn how we can refine the documentation, how we can make it better. So that's the developer audience. And I do think we have a couple of folks who are focused on the developer relations. They're working with these bigger partners. They're also working with enterprise partners in Polkadot. We have inbounds all the time saying, we've learned about Kilt. We want to use something with the DIDs. How can we work together? So we're getting better and better and faster about that type of documentation. But in parallel, I think it will be really important, as people start hearing about us in these partnerships, they'll be hitting our websites, they'll be wanting to learn more about digital identity. So we really have like a whole, quite a few things that we will be doing a facelift for, and just more, one sheets and materials, and teaching people really the basics, everything from decentralized identity to DIDs. I've been talking even with the Decentralized Identity Foundation, DIF, which is a large consortium of big and small companies, startups in the identity space, all the way up to Microsoft and IBM, because we want them to be able to use our examples and our partnerships as ways to even bring identity forward and help people understand this is what Web3 looks like, and this is coming and it's here. It's not just DAOs and NFTs and metaverses, which are still in progress, but this is actually something tangible. It's your identity, and so get excited.
Absolutely. I like what you said about Web3, kind of being here, because I think, even myself often talk about it as this futuristic thing, but really, that's really what's happening. And I really like your approach here too on the education side, because that's such a big part of it is really teaching people the ins and outs. So I love to hear that. And then also with these partnerships and integrations, big companies, it does mean more eyes on Kilt, more eyes outside of crypto, really. And I know we've kind of been on this topic, but what's your focus for newcomers, as in the general population? So not people adopting the tech necessarily, in terms of making Kilt more obtainable per se.
Well, part of it is all of our kind of external focused materials. We really want to, we're going to spend, you'll see a lot more from us in terms of marketing. We're going to be doing a lot more PR, and really trying to target the outlets, the publications, the blogs, the influencers for people who, we want to reach the IT decision makers, right? The CTOs, the CIOs. So we have quite a few different levels, the consumers, the business decision makers, the developers. And so it's really going to be, you'll see from us the next 4 to 6 months of a big focus on this. And then certainly getting very granular in, Q4 and into next year on real materials around things like DID sign and social KYC. So people can get their hands dirty, play with it, try it. The more partnerships we have, I think it'll be a nice virtuous circle of people coming to us and wanting to learn more.
Totally. And actually, I really like you have a couple of really good videos online. When I first was kind of investigating Kilt and seeing what I thought and learning about it, there was a couple really, really good videos that you had, short, simple, easy explanation. So this is all kind of part of it as well. But yeah, I'm really excited. But we're
also really happy when our community does. Like, some of those videos were done by our folks who stake and validate. So we're also happy when the community gets in there, they dig into it, they do a different approach, and that's how we're going to scale that education as well.
Totally. Community contribution is huge. And I think, even for myself or even the team at Moonsama, we're noticing that as well. I mean, it takes a village, really, and it's about everybody's kind of contributions.
Absolutely.
So without further ado, one of my biggest topics of today's interview is, obviously the move to Polkadot, which was huge news. Can you elaborate on this and why the move to Polkadot? What does this mean for Kilt?
Yeah, so first of all, let's talk a little bit about Kusama, because Kusama was really an important step for us. So we went live on Kusama in September, so last year, so basically 11 months ago. And I think Kusama is a fantastic idea, because this is something we can't find in any other networks. You don't find that in Ethereum, you don't find that in all the others, because it is not a test net, it is a real life network, right? It is a canary net, but it has the same functionality, even more functionality than Polkadot has. And so you can actually experiment around. And this was really important for us, because we did years of research before we actually implemented this thing. And doing research is something very lonely, and the customer doesn't see what you're doing, right? And then you launch something, and then we launched something, and then things like, oh, where's the asset IDs actually popped up, and which we thought maybe not so important, but then they turned out they're totally important. So we we had the chance to actually test with the users also the SDK and stuff like that. There were also people saying actually this could be much easier as do it like that. And so we had this year where we actually were maturing the network, putting in new functionality, making it nice and shiny, having the first integrations, like for example with Moonsama, and so having people actually use the stuff before we go out into the Polkadot world. So that was so Kusama is something absolutely unique in the blockchain world, and this is something which everyone needs. I would say I would recommend that to every network. But then if you start actually working with those big companies, the big companies require things like bank level security, absolute stability, and this is not what Kusama is made for. Kusama can totally crash at one point. We don't know if this point will ever come, but it is possible, especially it's a canary network. And it's also, if you talk about market capitalization, it's much lower than Polkadot, of course, and it's easier to trick, basically. So you shouldn't do really big scale things on Kusama. It was not meant to do that. It was always the plan from Gavin Wood that if you're basically ready, then you move over to Polkadot. Right. And the very boring news is that we are now ready and we just moved over. So that's it. So it was always planned. We never had any different plans. We never.
I wouldn't call it boring. It was not boring.
I was going to say there's nothing boring about it.
It was a lot of work in 2 weeks' time between deciding to doing it, to doing the crowd loan anonymously. That was exciting. You know, who's there, who's doing it.
It was a little bit exciting, yeah. But a year ago, we already said that we're going to do that. We never made a real timeline for that. We never said it's going to be exactly in September or August 2022, because we were not knowing when we were ready, right? And we were also not knowing when it was required that we actually move. But now it is required, and we are ready. Luckily, at the same time, not happens very often. So we just made this move, or are going to make this move later this month, later next month. Sorry, it's still August. So in September, we will actually move over, late September, we will actually move over. Of course, governance decision is required for that. And then we will just move the whole network as it is over to Polkadot. And this is another thing which is very boring news from us. We always said that we are going to do that we're going to move the whole network. So we're not going to have two networks like many other blockchains do. They have a Kusama network and they have a Polkadot network. We decided to take the Kusama network and as it is, just move it over to Polkadot in such a seamless way that nobody hopefully notices that it happened. So we just had to talk with the devs, and I think we will manage it in a way that only the collators will notice. So if you're a collator, you will have to restart your node, but that's basically it. So if everything works like we plan, then nothing is going to be visible. It's just going to have a new relay chain behind it, which is doing the work of auditing basically the blocks that we produce and bringing in the shared security, which is another great feature of Polkadot and Kusama. And so for the user, for the developer, and so on, nothing will be changed.
Amazing. So that means me as the user, I get to sit back, kick my feet up, and keep my same old rhythm with Kilt. I like that. Absolutely. And actually, you already elaborated. My next question was based on timeline and governance proposal, and you kind of tapped on that already. So perfect. You are so much further ahead than me. So that kind of wraps the biggest chunk of what I wanted to ask you. I have a couple small questions. What are you most excited about moving forward?
Yeah, well, I think you want to answer it. So I'm currently totally excited about getting these things with big companies done and actually live out in the world. I think this is a huge step for us because it is for us like the proof of concept, right? We came with this concept and said we want to build this. We want to build it on a blockchain. We want to build it in the Polkadot world. We want to build it with these partners and so on and so on. So lots of we want to do that and then if it is actually the adoption of big companies starts, because that trickles down then to smaller companies, of course, then we actually go out into the real world. And this is the thing I'm currently most excited about. technology-wise, I'm also a little bit excited about what's going to happen with all the asset DID stuff, because we have so many interesting new contacts which come in from the NFT world, and big NFT builders and traders and what they're called, platforms, and all these people are now starting to actually being interested to use Kilt protocol, which is fantastic as well. Yeah, these are the things which I'm currently very much excited about. Yes. Christine, what are you excited about?
So I'm excited about our media partners because I come from a media background, as does Ingo. And I know from working at Civil Media that when you introduce a blockchain innovation for journalism, for media companies, you get a lot of interest. You get interest from the corporate and the tech teams that are at the websites that are building and very interested in what you're doing. And the reporters want to know, hey, what's this blockchain project over there? It's rare that it's integrated, and media and media companies and websites and businesses are dear to my heart. So anywhere where we can help, with technology and innovation there, it's really exciting. And also it's just when these big partners launch and when people start talking about identity in these projects, I think it will help the identity world. I think it will help blockchain in general for more people to understand what's possible. It'll help the Polkadot ecosystem. Sometimes with chains, there's a lot of focus on DeFi projects and liquidity mechanisms and all these things, which are really quite technical and maybe not as interesting to a consumer, but identity is pretty universal. And so if we can even just grab people's interest in one piece, and I would love to be the entry point. I would love to be the training wheels into learning more about blockchain and Web3. And I think Kilt is really well positioned to do that.
And I think you are doing that, honestly. And I think, just as I totally believe it. And, kind of just as Ingo was saying earlier about, reaching outside of blockchain and outside of that environment, like you are really doing that. So I think it's really neat to see you guys in that position. And it's been really nice to follow along. So my last wrap up question of the day is, what would you like to see for the Polkadot ecosystem moving forward? Where do you see this ecosystem years down the road?
So I've been part of this ecosystem for a few years now, and it's been very exciting to see projects that came through the Web3 Foundation grants program a few years ago all grow up, so to speak. New projects coming in, there's so many, it's hard to keep track. New projects onboarding on parachains, and as Ingo said, Kusama having such a critical role. But now we've also had, since April, we've been on the road, speaking at conferences, meeting other teams. And so I think there's definitely a family in this .sama. We're gonna miss the Kusama crew, but most everyone is moving on to Polkadot and remains part of that ecosystem. So for me, it's seeing, and Parity actually is doing a lot to help this most recently, especially new hires, new folks focused on developer relations, new CMO at Polkadot and Parity. And so there's a real understanding that as an ecosystem, we have more power together and that we need to compete against other chains that are getting developers, that are getting projects that might be moving forward in gaming and some of the things where we really want to compete. So I think I see nothing but growth, but it is a very competitive market right now, and Polkadot is such a strong technology. We want to make sure that more and more verticals are building and becoming well known as projects, in addition to the DeFi and some of those that are more commonly talked about.
Well
said. Absolutely. Anything to add there, Ingo? Or?
Yeah, no, I can just second it. As I think it's Polkadot is growing by the people who use Polkadot actually, and Polkadot is complicated technology, and complicated technology is always complicated to explain. And as I think when the communication, which seems like it is now, actually becomes better in Polkadot, there will be more people attracted to the ecosystem, and then we will see a lot of use cases which are not just happening inside the blockchain ecosystem, but also outside. I think Polkadot definitely has the potential for that, and I think it's the best way to do that. And I have very strong hopes that this is going to happen. And we see some things, right? People are starting to talk to us because we are sometimes the entry point into the ecosystems and into our ecosystem. And so we see a lot of things actually coming up, which are totally useful, fantastic technologies, things which actually should have been done on blockchain like 10 years ago, but nobody ever somehow made it. And probably not because the technology wasn't there and Polkadot is there. And now it can be actually achieved. And we look very much looking forward to actually work together with those people, because Polkadot is built like a network of networks, right? So the thing about Polkadot is that you not only have shared security, but you also have communication mechanisms between the chains, and it's called XCM. And these things make it really, really powerful, because you look as a user or as a developer of a decentralized application, you just poke once into this ecosystem, and then you have the whole power of all the chains there. And that is the difference, right? And it's all different blockchains, but they can communicate. You can ask one blockchain, and this blockchain is going to do something for you on the other blockchain. These things are fantastic, and they're going to bring us forward. And they are, I think they are delivering the power that the industry actually needs, and none of the other ecosystems is doing this. And if we move forward this way, we're going to have a lot of fun and a lot of interesting things coming up, and a very bright future for the whole ecosystem.
Absolutely. Polkadot's so innovative, and I think that's what I love about it. Well, it's been like absolutely incredible to finally speak face to face. I mean, I feel like I already kind of know you guys through social media just because I've been following so closely, but it's nice to actually sit down and have a conversation. So I really appreciate you coming on the show, and hopefully one day in the future we can touch base again. But thank you so much, Ingo and Christine.
Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, thanks for having us. We love watching your social media presence, and you're such a strong advocate for the ecosystem for blockchain. So it's really important the work you do.
Oh, thank you so much. Absolutely. And I hope you have a fantastic day. I hope you enjoy your menthol vape. I hope you continue to dazzle us with all Kilt protocol in general. So thank you so much, and we'll talk to you later.